the first few months I was making something that was too serious, and it was like, I just woke up one morning like, what the hell am I doing? Like, it's like, what's the point of making something that's self-important and preachy? Like, it's like you get wound up in the ideas and you forget that people go to movies to eat popcorn and watch things explode, you know? I mean, the reason people go to movies is for an emotional connection to something, whether it's the guy, in this case, whether it's Vickers, or to feel empathy for the aliens. It's always about emotion. So making District 9 made me realize that if you actually have ideas you want to put forward, then you should go make documentaries, or you should become a writer. You know, you should go write novels or nonfiction. One thing that interests me, right, is just because I come from a background in that work, I think that if directors are spending millions of dollars on effects, then the way that they think about it is a little bit of they think about it in a different way. It's a very pricey commodity that you want to show off, and then you go on to the next shot. And I try to not think of it that way. It's kind of like, it's almost like having a disregard for the effects, even though I think it's actually the most important part of this film, because it's what makes it, you know, pure fiction. But the way to sell it is to almost have a disregard for it. It's like if you went out onto the street with a handy cam and you just shot around and then went back inside, you wouldn't focus on each tree, because each tree costs $200,000 to track and put into the shot. You would just film it however you wanted and go inside. And that's how I try to approach the visual effects. It's like, if something to do with the effects needs to be focused on, then I will. Otherwise, it's just part of the scenery. It doesn't matter how much it costs to put in there. It's just, you have to treat it that way. So I only do that because I want it to feel authentic. It was actually not that difficult, because by the time post on this film was happening, I had been separated from the computer for quite a while. Like, there was my favorite commercial that I ever did that no one's ever seen, which I'm gonna press Nike on until they release it, was a $3.5 million commercial, and it's awesome. And I did a little bit of work on it. And the stuff that I'm really interested in 3D isn't actually animation. It's design through modeling and then lighting. So like creating something, like, you know, whether it's creating the ship and lighting it, or in this case of this Nike commercial, it's interiors. But that was the first job. The commercial was done 90% by the embassy, and Industrial Light and Magic worked on like 10 or 15% of it. And it was epic. And the only thing I did was lit one of the environments. So that was the job that I learned how to communicate, you know, as a director, and to a certain degree as a visual effects supervisor. And since then, it's just been this slow, like, separation. So by the time this film came around, it's just the level of visual effects are happening at such a high degree that the only place for me to really be involved is to just communicate on a technical level, you know, with the artists about what I want the shot to look like. Well, it's a really good question. I mean, you know, for me, I'm actually not that up to speed with the South African companies, but I mean, you know, I don't know why that is. I could look into it more myself, because I mean, I would probably do that within the next year or two anyway, just out of curiosity. But I mean, there's also got to be a level, I think, of those South African companies like somehow making their way into, you know, like the same way that I would see work that like ILM did or Asylum or something, I would somehow come across that. It's like, for some reason, I'm not coming across South African work in the same way. So there has to be a level of like getting those vines out into like that North American or European world. With this next film that I want to do, I'm debating about perhaps doing it all virtual, like just do it completely digitally. It's like the, you know, half of Avatar being done completely through performance capture. And the reason for that is so that there are no compromises. It's like when you shoot live action, it just feels like you're compromising the whole time. You're losing light, you're behind schedule. Like, the process is about not getting the shot the way you want it to, and about losing time. So in order to have control of everything and to like capture the performance of the actors and then get rid of them, and then be able to focus on lighting it perfectly and getting the camera perfect, it's interesting enough to me that I actually want to do my next film virtually if the budgets work out. It may not, it may be too expensive. But that's how difficult I find that process of going from all virtual into the world of becoming a live action director, is you just don't have control over everything, and it is actually very frustrating.